And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
I'm Ryan.
And before we get into tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Brooklyn Nets, first off, happy holidays, everybody. Thank you for tuning in from the Revved Up Boys to you. Happy holidays. I hope you enjoy time with your family. Don't let the Pistons struggles on the court ruin your Christmas. Don't be the Grinch or bah humbugging because the Pistons fan base as a whole is just in the dumps right now. It's okay. Enjoy the eggnog, enjoy the presents, enjoy your time. The Pistons will start winning very, very soon. I'm not even going to try to pitch you guys Grind Clothing Co. this week. I'm going to give you guys a recap off. Okay, let's get right into tonight's recap as a holiday gift from the Revved Up Boys to the listeners. We'll give you no spiel at all. Let's get into tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Brooklyn Nets. The Pistons officially have the NBA or the franchise record rather for 26 straight losses in a row. I believe it's not the NBA record. I believe it's the franchise record. I could be misquoted on that. We'll have to maybe look into that a little bit in a little bit. But tonight's final score, 126 to 115. There have been tougher games to watch. I watched my dad, he was watching the game on his phone and he was just bah humbugging the whole time. He was just struggling to watch it. He's like, dude, they're so bad. They're so bad. I don't know how you recap this every night, but we're sticking with it so we can bring you guys the good content. But Ryan, when talking about this recap, let's start off on a positive. Okay. Let's start off. There's going to be plenty of negatives. So let's start off with talking about Jaden Ivey. 23 points tonight, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 6-11 from the field, 3 of 6 from the 3-point line, and had 2 blocks. So Jaden Ivey, well-rounded game tonight. In the early stages, the first 25 games of this season, a lot of the talk has been about Jaden Ivey's struggles. But in the last 3 to 4 games, he's been playing a little bit better. Ryan, some of your first thoughts on Jaden Ivey's play?
Jaden Ivey has been coming to play as of lately. And it's not just in the stat category, it's the whole game, just everything. You're seeing him bring a lot of energy. You're seeing him bring a lot of enthusiasm out there when he's on the floor. His defense has been honestly spectacular. And that's something he's not known for particularly. Before coming into his NBA career as a rookie, he was known as more of like a offensive juggernaut, not necessarily defensive minded.
Right.
Then we saw last year there were flashes of his defensive presence and what he can bring us. And then this year we're finally starting to piece it all together, and it's been fun to watch. Of course, there's going to be ups and downs with Jaden Ivey or any young player coming into the league, but Jaden Ivey has just been, in my opinion, he's playing above expectations right now. I know he had the rocky start, but the recent play from him alone is showing you that there isn't really any issues with Jaden Ivey. And I don't think there's actually any issues with him and Monty Williams or him in the front office. I don't think there's any issues at all. I just think it's more of growing pains as to why Ivy was playing the way he was. And then also, like Monty did say, hey, I want the best guys out there at all times. So if that means I have to sacrifice having Ivy, who could easily start on this team, come off the bench and come control the second unit, I'm going to take that. So it's not necessarily that Ivy's been bad or that Monty's out to get him. It's just that the bottom line is they want to win. They want to find the right elements, right rotation, right players out there on any given night to win these games. And as of lately, it's been Ivy in the starting lineup that we're starting to see these games come closer and closer at the end. But that also has to do in part because of how he's been playing, both offensively and defensively. Whereas before, in the couple games he did start, where he'd have 10 points, maybe 5, and it's like not even anything substantial.
Right.
We've struggled. But when he's hot like this, we play great. And I know I just said we played great, and we lost, but that's the truth. When Ivy plays good, alongside Cade's having a solid night, and then Bojan's having a solid night, and others are having a solid night, we are more well-rounded if Ivy's playing good. If Ivy's not playing good, it seems like the rest of the team just kind of falls. And it's always one person has to do everything. And we don't want that on Cade.
Well, and when it comes to talking about Jaden Ivey's play, it's always an eye test because the first 3 minutes Jaden Ivey's playing in a game, you can determine whether he's going to make an impact or not, because it's how fast he's getting up and down the court, how active he is in the passing lanes, how many rebounds he's going after and boxing out for. That's what determines if Jaden Ivey is going to have a 20-point game or not. Because if he is in it physically, mentally, he has all the talent to make it work. It's when he's not mentally fully there and physically seems drained, seems tired, that's when he's not going to make an impact. He is such a physical player that if he just physically doesn't seem there, it's not going to work. And I do know, like, a point to be made, like, it's not always on the court things that are the issues. Maybe it's the off the court. I mean, he's a new dad, newly married guy. Like, there's a lot going on for this young man, Jaden Ivey. It's hard to balance all that. So maybe it's not necessarily a court thing. Maybe it's just a lot on his plate right now, and he's just working through that life aspect. I think sometimes as fans, we kind of overlook that these guys have lives like we do and have responsibilities, not just on the court to earn a paycheck, but also things going on with family. So that's another thing I wanted to kind of talk about with Jaden Ivey. But another positive tonight, we saw Kevin Knox get 24 minutes, 14 points, shot very efficient, which is very impressive for him. Shot 5 of 6 from the field, 3 of 3 from the 3-point line. That's the biggest thing for Kevin Knox is the efficiency, because we know in certain stretches, given the minutes, he can put up points. But it's sometimes for him to get 12 points, sometimes it takes him, he needs to put up 20 shots, where tonight he gets the 14-point mark with only taking 6 shots. I was very impressed with Kevin Knox. And on a losing streak like the Pistons are going through right now, anybody that's proving to score, like you said, Monty wants the best players playing, the most active players playing. That's going to make a good case for him to start getting some minutes over in Alec Burks.
Yeah, Kevin Knox, when last year with us, he struggled a lot. And I don't know necessarily what changed for him, other than the fact that he probably wanted to be in Detroit and then they got rid of him just like that. That probably flipped the switch, because last year to end out the season in Portland, he was actually playing solid. He was getting a good 12 points a night. Portland just didn't have him in their future, so that's why he walked in free agency. And then we end up with him due to having an extra roster spot. And so here we are with Kevin Knox. First game back in Detroit, goes out for like 18 points. And he was very efficient that night too. And so that's one of my more popular-ish, cool, like I've enjoyed watching this out of Kevin Knox. When he's efficient, he's fun to watch. And it's been the case as of lately. We haven't seen him get a lot of minutes the last couple nights out. But I will say, I think because of his play tonight and then his play the previous nights when he actually gets a chance to play, I think he's making a case to be getting more minutes. I don't mind Alec Burks getting less minutes than Kevin Knox. I think Alec Burks is the better player, so he should be getting that minutes. But if Kevin Knox is going to go out there and do that versus a guy like Joe Harris, I know Joe Harris played because it was his first game back to Brooklyn. I know why that's the case. But if he's going to do that, and Joe Harris has not been really anything spectacular so far for us, give him those minutes. Same with Livers. Livers, I'm sorry, I love you. You're a great person, but it doesn't seem like you're built to play in the NBA. It doesn't seem like your game translated from college to the pros. So, like, if we're giving out minutes right here, I'd be giving Kevin Knox minutes over Livers. I'd be giving him minutes over Wiseman, and I'd be giving him minutes over Harris. Those 3 guys for sure, I'd be giving him minutes over. And at times, I'd give him minutes over Marcus Sasser, which is kind of bold. But Sasser, he hasn't been getting the amount of minutes that he probably should be getting. But again, he's a rookie. He's going to go through growing pains. There's probably stuff in practice that he's struggling with. not grasping concepts too well that guys like Alec Burks, who's a vetted player, is grasping. Kevin Knox, who's a vetted player, is grasping. So if we're going down the list of players on our team that deserve minutes, I think Kevin Knox is almost at the top of the list.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think like he's a scorer. We know that he can scorch on the offensive end. It's just the efficiency. So if there's a time to see or him to make an impact on an NBA team that he hasn't really done yet in his career, it's time, Kevin Knox. Kick it into next gear because in a couple of years, you're going to be playing overseas, if not next year. So he's got to start kicking it into gear, not just selfishly as a Pistons fan, but for him as a player. He needs to, and have a career. He needs to like start kicking it into the next gear. But when you look at the box score of tonight's game, there's nothing that really jumps out. The Pistons shot nearly 50% from the field. They did okay, from the free throw line. It was the defense against the Nets because the Nets had 7 players score in double-digit points. Mikal Bridges is the only guy that outscored his normal average. So this losing streak comes down to not being able to get defensive stops because the Pistons have gotten better at having not so many turnovers. They've cut it down over the last couple weeks. So that's a good category that they have slowly chopped away down. We're up to 13 on the night. Usually they're hovering around 20 in the weeks prior. They have gotten better at getting below that 20 mark in turnovers. The fouling is another issue, but it's on the offensive end. The Pistons play good enough to get wins. It's the defensive side. They're allowing almost every team to score nearly 130 points. And that just is not the recipe to win games.
No, when you look at who played tonight and you look at Asar Thompson, Asar had his moments where he's been phenomenal. But it seems like the last couple nights out there, starting or coming off the bench, it seems like he's struggling. And obviously rookies struggle a lot during their rookie season, first year in the league. So I think we're starting to see that with Asar Thompson. He's going to hit the struggle bus. But like honestly, outside of Jaden Ivey being the bright spot he was tonight, there wasn't much defensively from any of the other guys. There were moments in time where certain possessions were going by and we were seeing all the guys flying all over the place on defense and they were looking pretty darn good. Like I'm sitting there going like, wow, we're actually playing defense for once. And that doesn't happen too much. And so I will agree with you. That's the one big takeaway from tonight on why we are losing these games. But also losing this game tonight is our defense. If we played defense like the way the Going to Work Pistons played, the way the Bad Boys played, my goodness, we'd be winning games. We would not have lost 26 games in a row. The way we're scoring the ball is not the issue. It's defense. That's the bottom line. That's always going to be the bottom line because this team is not built for defense. The only a couple guys that are built for defense, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and Wiseman, I guess. But
Durant
even
out.
Durant is out, yeah. But
really 3 guys.
Yeah, really 3 guys. But I will say the play of Ivy this season alone, I would throw him into that same boat. So those 4 guys, only 4 guys on our team really can play defense. Otherwise, Cade, I love you, but you suck at defense. Bojan sucks. He's atrocious at defense. Every single time he looks to foul. That's what he does. Joe Harris doesn't even get enough minutes to see how good of a defender he is. But even when he is in at times, he's not phenomenal. Alec Burks, at time to time, can be effective on defense, but he's just been struggling this year. There's been a lot of guys on this team. Well, okay, I'm just going to say it. Livers is probably the worst defender on the team. But because it's hard for me to say that because he actually is solid at defense. But like outside of, there's just the bottom line is it's hard to be positive when we keep losing and defense is always the issue. And it's just like we only had 3 blocks tonight, only had 5 steals. That's not good. Normally, the last couple nights out, we'd been seeing Ivy getting 5 steals, 3 steals, 7 steals, and then all of a sudden, we're as a team we only have 5. In the defensive stat category between steals and blocks, we finished with 8 tonight, whereas Brooklyn finished with 13. Like, it's not going to cut it if we can't play defense.
Yeah, and when a couple weeks back we talked about on the Mothership podcast about everything that why things were going wrong for the Pistons, and I talked about how the Pistons were in the bottom 2 teams in deflections per game. So yeah, that's not turnovers, but that's disrupting opposing teams' offenses and that effort. It's one of those effort categories. And the Pistons just struggle in that ballpark. And so I think, a big thing is they're going to have to trade for a guy that can help out in that category. I don't know who it is. We talked about OG Anunoby a couple weeks back, and Brandon Ingram, and Harrison Barnes, and Andrew Wiggins. I just don't know if they're the defensive presence guys that are going to solve the issues. There's a lot going on with the Pistons right now. There's a lot to fix. It's hard to know.
Yeah, and then even if you haven't seen the video that came out today, go watch it. It's a good one. We talk about potential trade scenarios surrounding the Pistons, and we talk about a couple guys that are good on defense, good on offense, all around good overall players. Like Keldon Johnson, he at times I would take him gladly defensively over almost anybody on our team. But again, like you said, there's not a lot of guys out there that are probably available for us to make a trade for. And then 2, it's like, what would we have to give up to get these players? And the way our team has played this year, there's not a lot of good value out there. Obviously, the bright spots are Cade, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Marcus Sasser. But outside of that, there's not a ton of bright spots. I mean, obviously, Asar Thompson's a bright spot, but I don't think you throw any of those guys in a trade package. The only one that I see getting moved is Ivy out of those. But the way our team's been playing, they're just not playing to the level that they should be playing at, and it's getting to the point where it's like, if a team is in trade discussions with us and we're trying to trade for, like, let's say we're trying to trade with Toronto, we're trying to go after OG Anunoby. There's no way in heck, based off our current roster, they're going like, oh, I want that player, I want that player, I want that player. There's no way. The only players that you could even say that for is like Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Jaden Ivey. There's just not a lot. So I do want to trade, because I do think we're missing a guy that can score for us, and I think we're missing a defender. But it's just the way everybody's been playing, it's kind of hard to make a trade.
Yeah, and it's tough to know because it's a big gamble for opposing teams to make a trade with us, because guys like Jaden Ivey, or they aren't quite playing or even like an Alec Burks. Alec Burks was playing really good last year. He was giving 15 to 16 points a game for us last year. Right now he's like at 8. It's nearly cut in half this season. So it's like he would have had some good trade value on the market last year, but this year it's gone down, and he's only gotten older since this time last year. So it's tough. And I hope Troy Weaver's taking calls, calling people, at least hearing out different trade scenarios. But I agree, those names that you listed off, I think they got to be untouchable. We can't quite give up on the last 3 years of draft picks. I think that's a big thing. We got to hold out on them. That will do it for tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Brooklyn Nets. Tonight's final score was 126 to 115. As Ryan mentioned before, earlier today, our new episode that comes out on every Saturday came out, and we talk about the potential trades the Pistons could make. Guys like Keldon Johnson. What were some of the other guys?
PJ Washington.
Yeah, PJ Washington and
Jeremy
John
Grant,
Collins,
Matisse Thybulle, John
John
Collins, Colin Sexton.
Yep. So Jeremy Grant, you guys got to tune in. That's a good trade. You guys got to tune in and get our thoughts. And that would be awesome for you guys to tune in. Make sure to comment below if you have any thoughts on tonight's game against the Brooklyn Nets. We would love to hear what your guys' takes are, and maybe some of your guys' trade scenarios and what you kind of saw went wrong. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next Revved Up recap, and happy holidays. Peace.